Hi everyone, it's Beth from the West Allis Public Library, and today in book club it is our final day in What is the Declaration of Independence, which is just in time for the 4th of July. Okay, so just a reminder, the library is closed on the 4th of July, so we'll see you on Monday. Okay, the United States of America is born. This is chapter 9. Now that the Declaration was written, the question was, how would the delegates react? On June 28, 1776, Thomas Jefferson delivered the Declaration of Independence to the Second Continental Congress. Jefferson did not like to speak in public because he had a lisp and was very self-conscious about it. So he did not read the Declaration. He gave the written parchment to the President of the Congress, John Hancock. Delegates took turns gathering around the parchment to read the words Jefferson had written. It created a huge buzz. Everyone had an opinion. But before any official debate on the Declaration, the Congress had to vote again on Richard Lee's proposal of independence. On July 2nd, 1776, it passed. The colonists had officially decided to break free of Great Britain and King George III. John Adams was so excited about the vote on Lee's declaration that he quickly wrote a letter to his wife Abigail. He said that July 2nd would be celebrated across the colonies as the birth of a new nation for years to come. So yesterday, the 2nd of July. Adams was only 2 days off. Okay, so time out. I'm going to go do a quick blurb on who thought up the country's name. Why are we called the United States of America? Unfortunately, it is not clear exactly who first called the new country the United States of America. Jefferson used it as the title of one of his first versions of the Declaration. But in the final draft, he changed it slightly to the 13 United States of America. Other people definitely used the name before the Declaration was written. For example, 3 months earlier, in March of 1776, a farmer in Virginia had written letters to a local newspaper referring to the United States of America. And a couple of months before that, one of Washington's officers used the same name in a letter about hoping to travel to Spain to get that country's help for the war to create the United States of America. So, long story short, we don't know who first called us the United States of America. Okay, back to it. The debate quickly started on the Declaration. And very quickly, Thomas Jefferson grew annoyed. He sat in the steamy assembly room where the Second Continental Congress was meeting and listened to delegates pick apart his words. This is hard for all writers. The delegates debated with passion and sometimes even anger. To Jefferson, it was like having 55 editors making changes to something that they asked him to write. Some changes were minor and didn't bother Jefferson at all. But other changes made Jefferson furious. He had originally included language condemning slavery. Most of the delegates from the South, including Jefferson, owned slaves. But he felt strongly that this new country, based on freedom, could not allow slavery to continue. Jefferson argued to keep the anti-slavery language in the Declaration. But too many Southern delegates said that, if so, they would not sign the Declaration. John Adams and Ben Franklin, who agreed with Jefferson about slavery, convinced him that it was better to compromise than to have no declaration and no new country. Jefferson fumed, but he agreed. So the language ending slavery was cut. The fierce debate over the Declaration of Independence lasted 3 days. It might have lasted longer if it weren't for the horseflies that pestered the delegates throughout their meetings. There was a stable nearby, and swarms of flies came through the open windows. Remember, this is July when they're having this discussion, so it is hot and there's flies swarming. Imagine that. There were nearly 100 changes, making the Declaration 25% shorter than Jefferson's original. Jefferson returned to his room and wrote out a final version. He delivered it to the Second Continental Congress on the morning of July 4th, 1776. There was no more debate, no more arguments. At this point, only 2 men signed the document: John Hancock, the president of the Continental Congress, and Charles Thompson, the congressional secretary. The United States of America was born. Hancock sent the document to a local printer to have about 200 copies made. By July 5th, they were being delivered to all the colonies. One copy went to George Washington in New York, where he was stationed with his troops. Ever since the fighting in Lexington and Concord in the spring of 1775, there had been small battles going on between the Continental Army and the Redcoats, especially in the Northeast. On July 8th, the Declaration of Independence was read aloud to a crowd outside Independence Hall. A bell rang repeatedly, and everyone cheered wildly. The following day, General Washington had the Declaration read to his troops and New York colonists. The large crowd was so excited that they pulled down a 15-foot-tall statue of King George III on a horse. Legend has it that the statue was melted down to make more than 40,000 bullets for the American Army. In mid-July, the Congress ordered a new, more clearly written copy of the Declaration. This was what all 56 delegates to the Second Continental Congress signed. A Pennsylvania man named Timothy Matlock copied the Declaration in clear handwriting on a large parchment paper, about 2 feet by 2.5 feet. On August 2nd, 1776, this official version of the Declaration of Independence was presented to John Hancock, the president of the Congress. He was the first to sign. 50 delegates joined Hancock that day in signing the document. 5 other delegates signed it at a later date. The Revolutionary War began, and the brand new United States of America had to win it. Losing was not possible. Okay, so here, I'm going to stop for a little blurb called John Hancock's Signature. For the past 200 years, the phrase, "Put your John Hancock here," means writing one signature. That's because Hancock's name on the Declaration of Independence can't be missed. It's the largest and centered directly under the text. According to legend, Hancock wanted his name to be big enough so the king could see it without putting on his glasses. But many historians say that is only a story. They suggest that the real reason Hancock's signature is so big is that he signed it first. He didn't think about the fact that 55 other signatures had to fit in the empty space below the text. So next time you're in the library's program room, which might be a little while, but if you remember, it's called the Constitution Room, and one of the things in there is a copy of the Declaration of Independence. So you can see all the signatures, and right there, really big, is John Hancock's signature. So that's a good place. I'll try to remember to put an image of it in the description of this video, but just in case, we do have a copy at the library. Okay, Chapter 10. What happened to the signers? All the men who wrote their names on the Declaration of Independence knew they were putting their lives on the line. The simple act of writing their signatures meant they might be executed. Remember, if we lost the war, those men would all be in big trouble because we would still be a colony of Britain. After the witty Benjamin Franklin signed his name, he is reported to have said, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately." By this he meant that the signers all had to stick together, because if the redcoats caught them, they would each be hung as a traitor. Some of these men did indeed pay with their lives. 5 of the signers were captured and held prisoner by the British during the war. A dozen or more had their houses attacked and burned. Others had their businesses destroyed. The home of Francis Lewis of New York was raided by the British while he was still at the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. His wife was taken prisoner and held for several months. Later, she was freed in exchange for the release of British soldiers held by American forces. The war was not a short one. General Washington and his troops defeated the British Army at Yorktown in October 1781. After that, the war was essentially over, but it would take 2 more years before a peace treaty was signed. With victory for the United States of America, the real work, as outlined in the Declaration of Independence, began. Making one nation out of 13 colonies with different needs and interests was not an easy job. For that, another even more important document had to be written: the United States Constitution of 1787. Many of the men who signed the Declaration were eager to serve in the new government. Sam Adams became governor of Massachusetts for more than 3 years. John Hancock was elected governor of Massachusetts many times between 1780 and 1793, the year he died. Richard Henry Lee was appointed one of the first senators from Virginia after the Constitution was passed. Benjamin Franklin, who played an important role in shaping the Constitution, was appointed the first United States Postmaster General. That's the post office. Others among the signers rose even higher in office. John Adams served as vice president under the very first president, George Washington. Then, in 1796, Adams was elected the second president of the United States. He served for 4 years. He and his wife Abigail moved into the brand new White House in Washington, D.C. in 1800. Thomas Jefferson became Secretary of State under President Washington. He lost the presidential election of 1796 to John Adams, but he got enough votes to become vice president. They did not agree on how the government should be run. So did you catch that? Originally, the second place finisher became vice president. So the president didn't get to choose his vice president. It was just, second place gets to be vice president. So that has definitely changed. That changed pretty quickly, actually. They did not all agree on how the government should be run. Jefferson became the 3rd president of the United States in 1801. He served 2 terms, so 8 years. Ironically, both Jefferson and John Adams died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence was signed. Famous or not, each of the signers are heroes who put their lives on the line and played a part in founding our country. All right, so that is the end. That is the story of the Declaration of Independence. Join us next week when we'll start a brand new book from the Who HQ, the Big Hit series. And I hope everybody has a really wonderful 4th of July and a great holiday weekend. Bye!